So Japan just obliterated Ubisoft's fake apology from yesterday. Ubisoft came out and said, really sorry, Japan, for getting all of this stuff wrong with Assassin's Creed, but it's also partially your fault, and also get over it and buy our game anyway. Middle finger, yeah. They were getting wrecked by people on social media, and they are getting wrecked as of today, since Japan has come together and posted a community note in response to this apology from Ubisoft, and it says this right here. Although it states that the games in the Assassin's Creed series are not made with the purpose of recreating historical facts, because that is something that Ubisoft claimed in this letter itself, or historical figures, it goes on, in an interview with the development staff stated, quote, historical accuracy has been confirmed. Quote, it has all the information we need to reconstruct what Japan was like in the 16th century. It's well described. Conduct thorough research and compare the results with experts. Historical games, historical fidelity maintained. This is something that Ubisoft brags about often, that their games are historically faithful, all right? Remember that Ubisoft helped rebuild the Notre Dame Tower when it was burned down because of their recreation within their video games engine for their historical depictions. And they said before that this was going to be a historically accurate video game, that the characters within were going to be historically accurate, and here is a community note from Japan ripping that narrative to pieces. They go on to mention not just one, but two different articles, and they quote, it faithfully depicts real historical figures and events of the time. Therefore, the message contradicts previous statements made by the development staff. That is a burning if I have ever seen one. Let's take a look at the first article from Famitsu, which I have translated from Japanese to English. Assassin's Creed Shadows, the double protagonists of Samurai Yasuke and Shinobu Naoe, who live in the chaotic Azuchi Momoyama era, reveal a domestic exclusive interview that approaches realistically recreated Japan. And this is something that Ubisoft has always bragged about and that other people have bragged about on their behalf, that their recreations of ancient history are something to be wowed about. But this is a particularly long interview, so I have found those exact lines that the people found for this community note, and I'll read them to you guys because he was asked several questions about the historical accuracy of this game, one of them being, please tell us what kind of materials you use to represent the fields and character costumes of the Azuchi Momoyama period, to which one of the developers responded that they have been working with experts and consultants for a long time. Remember, this game has been in development for several years, and they have had a lot of time to do research for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and they have still dropped the ball in so many ways, as their experts have appeared to prove themselves incompetent in finding accurate depictions of pretty much anything, to the point where they're making Japanese things into Chinese things and getting those two things confused, alongside other problems like depicting a real historical figure like Yasuke as a legendary samurai when it's never been proven that he was, or that he might have been bisexual, and giving him several relationship options to support that. But he goes on to say that for the characters, I looked at their appearances, costumes, and other things that were referenced by museum exhibits and books. After visiting several museums and doing some research, I collated the materials with Stephanie Ann, and he goes on to say that he created a character based on them. I also referred to the descriptions in the book about the colors and the flags that people carried. You mean like that banner that you stole from an actual organization from present day and used without permission inside of the development of the game? He says we use multiple sources, but we have verified their historical accuracy. How much of the history can possibly be verified, considering all of the mistakes that normal people who have done basic research have pointed out to you? But the quote continues, Stephanie Ann had been with the help of experts for several years, but also carried out research with studios and teams in Japan. They teamed up with a lot of people, but apparently got so much wrong in the process. How did they go so wrong with all of this? Using different types of sources, we made sure the team understood it correctly and had all the information they needed to reconstruct what Japan looked like in the 16th century. Well, from the looks of things, some of that information got lost in translation, and you've ended up with a monstrosity that some would consider not unlike a Frankenstein's creation. A mixture of African, Japanese, and Chinese culture, for what it's worth. But there's the proof right there. Yeah, Ubisoft is getting destroyed right here. They have been caught lying, they've been caught contradicting themselves, and this has happened multiple times, including in this second article that is referenced in that same community note. How did Assassin's Creed Shadows blend two different experiences? This is also translated from Japanese to English, and I searched down here to see where that quote was used, and the same developer that I've seen in other interviews issued this statement right here. The game faithfully depicts real-life historical figures like Oda Nobunaga and the events of the time, so you can learn about this wonderful era while enjoying the game set in feudal Japan. Japan is really giving Ubisoft a run for their money. I cannot imagine that they're very happy up at headquarters, but what more can you expect when you botch a video game this badly? This situation has gotten so much out of control and reached so many prying eyes and ears that even investors are starting to question the ability of Ubisoft to keep things afloat. As per that Park Place, Ubisoft executives get evasive after investors question potential low sales for Star Wars Outlaws and Assassin's Creed Shadows. People from all angles are looking at this game, people who are actually thinking critically, and seeing two video games that have the potential for failure, both financially and perceptively. They don't understand how two video games that are surrounded in so much controversy can possibly be successful unless people buy these games out of pure spite and rage. And so when meetings are called to discuss these games, these investors are calling Ubisoft out on their ridiculousness. This is one of the questions that the investors asked Ubisoft when this meeting took place. When I look at the guidance for quarter 2, and if I assume something similar for back catalog in quarter 2 as quarter 1, kind of getting to 200 or 230 million euros, that sort of range, for the new release Star Wars Outlaws, when I look at the $70 price and then assuming what you might get from it, I'm getting to around 5 million units, something in that sort of bracket. First of all, where could I be going wrong with that thinking? Secondly, are you just being pretty conservative in your guidance? Because I guess given the interest in that game, we might have thought it would be more than 5 million units. So they were asking, hey, this doesn't seem like a successful number for Star Wars Outlaws. It doesn't really appear that these are the numbers you guys are looking for. So can you tell me where I'm wrong? Because he's not sure if his math is correct. And it goes on to say that not only would he question the sales figures for Star Wars Outlaws, he also questioned the potential for Assassin's Creed Shadows too. And why wouldn't he? You can't go anywhere on social media without hearing about that video game now, whether it's being advertised by Ubisoft or being called out by Japanese and United States gamers. Quote, when I look at the second half, clearly I think we are going to need a heavy contribution from Assassin's Creed, but could it be those revenues would in fact be boosted by multiple hundreds of millions in partnership deals, that kind of range to get us over the line? Ubisoft responded to this question, of course, we can't comment on the very numbers you're quoting, so yep, sorry, we're not going to tell you nothing. But what we have factored in is a strong launch for Star Wars Outlaws that reflects the fact that it is among the most awaited games of the industry this year, and a really strong positive community sentiment. So he's saying people are really excited about what we've shown them, and it is one of the most anticipated games out there. And also the fact that we are coming with the biggest marketing campaign ever so far for Ubisoft games. So that's what we've been factoring in the second quarter. They've been spending a lot of money advertising their games. But what fascinates me is that this guy said that the community sentiment is really positive. Just on the gameplay video that they released alone, it got completely ratioed on YouTube by a lot of people who disliked it. And this is not just speaking on behalf of that trailer, but for all the trailers that they've released for Star Wars Outlaws, at least most of them, maybe not one of the early footage ones, but their official trailers that they released in the past few months have gotten absolutely smoked by gamers everywhere. Their YouTube videos are ratioed up the wazoo. That's not something that they can really lie about, but they're definitely trying to do it in this investors meeting. He goes on to say, as we mentioned, we expect Shadows to be the most ambitious title of the series. We also anticipate that Star Wars, that is usually a very strong brand around Christmas, should do very well with the busy season and a strong impact also from content from both games. And also we expect further growth from Rainbow Six Siege, as well as a strong impact of Shadows on the back catalog of Assassin's Creed, plus the contribution of X-Defiant. So they claim that their game is going to be successful, that it's going to be one of the strongest entries in the series, that they can't comment on the numbers. I don't see why not, but because they say, trust me, bro, this game is obviously headed in a very positive direction. And of course, they reiterate very strong positive community sentiment overall. And that is just not true. I think that anywhere you go, these games are riddled in controversy at the very least. And if you take a look at the actual people who are really trying to talk about it and constructively criticize it, you will find that many people are not excited about these two titles, even though Ubisoft claims the opposite. Which brings us to the two funniest parts of this interview. Quote, the game has gone gold, so the date is well confirmed for August 13th, and as you mentioned, we'll be showcasing more content of a very high quality. Multiple hours that will really show the depths of the open world, because one of the investors were like, hey, but that recent Star Wars Outlaws video of The girl traveling across an empty desert in Tatooine did not look very interesting and apparently made a lot of people who were watching it very angry. So what do you have to say about that? And they're just like, trust me, we got plenty more where that came from. Right, but you should probably address why everything that you have shown from the game looks underdeveloped, boring, and aesthetically uninviting. But another guy backs that guy up, saying, we've said also for Star Wars, the level of quality, the world, and the experience, it's really very high. We are leveraging our engine, and I think people will love it. Well, I think only time will tell, Ubisoft, although you're not handling the criticism that you've been getting very well, since the letter that you've been showing to people has not been received positively. You've been getting noted by Japan. And a whole bunch of people in Japan and people in the Japanese government have all eyes on you. They also have eyes on the people who perpetuated the Yasuke lie, of course. But I think at this point, it's impossible for Ubisoft to try and twist reality to fit their ridiculous vision for this video game, or the mistakes that they have tried to gloss over by giving a half-baked apology to people that they have clearly misunderstood in the long term. But those are just external issues. Those are outside observations. Internally, things are actually much worse. As you may have noticed earlier, in one of my previous videos, I mentioned that Ubisoft's stocks have been tanking. They've actually been tanking for several years, although recently they took a really huge hit, and I imagine it's partially due to all of the backlash that they've been getting for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and for angering Japan repeatedly, and it is not showing signs of recovery. It's actually lower than it was last time I covered this, which is why I believe that things are not going well for Ubisoft, and they are pushing back against this with apologies that don't make any sense. A lot of people think that their apology was simply AI generated, which is why it appears to read so coldly and almost accusatory towards the Japanese people. There's more going on with the Japanese people conducting their own investigations on professors that are pushing this Yasuke stuff across the West and Japan. Just in, Japanese researchers have exposed another Western Oxford historian, this is from Learning the Law, who supports the idea that Yasuke may have had LGB romance. Her specialty is transnationalism, identity, interracial relations, gender, and historical memory of Japan. Shocked? Pan people are awakening, and I do believe that they are awakening. I believe that a lot of Japanese people are taking notice of what's going on with Assassin's Creed Shadows, and since they feel that they can't entrust their own historians to tell the truth, a lot of them are taking matters into their own hands. This is a book written by Natalia Doan and Shio Kanishi, Black Transnationalism and Japan. This is the type of literature that pushes the Yasuke narrative that he was either a samurai or that he may have been bisexual, and a lot of inspiration for Ubisoft's depiction of Yasuke comes from people like Thomas Lockley, who perpetuate the Yasuke lie about legendary samurai status, and book writers like these, who have no internal moral conflict when it comes to manipulating history to fit whatever twisted vision they have rolling around in their brains. Who was Yasuke, Japan's first black samurai? Smithsonian Magazine, article by Jacqueline Germain, featuring comments by Dr. Natalia Doan. It's not just the bisexuality that she claims may have been real for Yasuke, but also the samurai narrative, which is something that she probably got from Thomas Lockley. A lot of people get their information from Thomas Lockley, including Ubisoft. And Thomas Lockley gets his information from only a handful of documents that don't even support the theory that Yasuke was ever a samurai at all, but that he was just a bag carrier, a sword carrier, a guy who got a little sword and a house and a stipend just like a bunch of merchants did and a bunch of sumo wrestlers did. Getting a sword, a house, and a stipend is something that you can only get if you're a samurai, and yet so many people who could never be a samurai got those things as well. Which, funny enough, is a fact that has been omitted from several of these arguments trying to stand the Yasuke narrative to death. And also, do not forget that Ubisoft hired an LGBT activist expert who studies same-sex relationships between monks and adolescent boys in Japan, and they have her working on the story for that game. This stuff runs deep, and a lot of people are enabling this narrative, and the Japanese people are pushing back against it because so many people are afraid that this could lead to some kind of international conflict, whether that be through information warfare or something else, and that is not a stage that anybody wants to reach. So if that is a worry that is shared by both countries, then why is it that Ubisoft is pushing out half-baked apologies like this? Why is it that they're saying, oh, well, we're sorry, but we're not really sorry, and we hope that you guys still buy the game, instead of just admitting admitting that some of the things that they've been doing in this game are pretty racist towards the Japanese. They are glorifying a black man who was never a samurai while he murders a bunch of Japanese people in this game to the assistance of dubstep rap music with swaggery beats. I mean, this is ridiculous stuff, man. Speaking of Japan, we've also got Capcom on the chopping block. Capcom admits it has an internal quota to increase percentage of female managers and is considering hiring non-Japanese directors. It's worthy to note that these people are pushing ESG and DEI pretty hard since 2021, as per a letter where they stated that they were committed to ESG, which is environmental, social, and governance. Quote, I believe that building a healthy relationship with stakeholders through business activities leads to improved corporate value, therefore focusing particularly on S, social, and G, corporate governance of ESG. I recognize our critical issues as 1, developer numbers, 2, diversity, and 3, support for education, and 4, the ratio of external directors. We will continue to promote ESG initiatives based on SDG goals of creating a sustainable society and strive for sustainable growth while building a relationship of trust with our stakeholders. They go on to say, regarding female managers, currently 21.2% of employees are female and 13.6% of our core talent is female. We are aiming to bring the percentage of female managers up to 15%. Why? Probably because of ESG and what they feel is the requirement that will propel them to a diverse, equitous, and inclusive utopia. Looking ahead, we believe we will be able to see more female directors by broadening our scope and increasing the ratio of female managers. And if these female management positions are designed to push DEI, then likely those people in those positions are going to support DEI. So you can expect to see a lot of projects in the future that push DEI in some way. I don't know if it's going to be most of their titles, but very clearly they are embracing what DEI is and they see a profitable future with it. Regardless of what people say in protest, regardless of how many people say we don't want this in our video games, they're making it clear that they do not care in the slightest what people think, and that's why they have guidelines like these: inclusive language and representation. Localization efforts extend to promoting inclusivity through language and representation. They're putting money into this stuff. It does not just begin and end with game development, it also includes localization, either for their video games or whatever other media they have going for them. They are committing to ESG for the time being. So that is something that gamers are going to have to prepare for. Customers, you're going to have to prepare for this kind of stuff. It goes on to say this involves adapting not only the linguistic aspects, but also addressing gender-specific language, cultural norms, and diverse perspectives. The aim is to create an immersive experience where players from different backgrounds can identify with the characters and narrative. This can be very challenging for certain languages due to grammar. Capcom was recently dealing with controversy surrounding SNK versus Capcom, which was basically a remaster of the original game, and they put a disclaimer on the video game just like they did with Tomb Raider, where it said that this does not reflect the values of this company today. Even though we're going to sell it as a product for people to play and hope that they enjoy it, we're going to make a bunch of money while also not agreeing with anything in this game, so you guys just be made aware that we do not like it. We know that you like it and are going to play the crap out of it, but we don't, but we're also going to make money off of you guys playing it. And that's the mindset that these people have at Capcom, and it is a value that a lot of developers have stated in their own disclaimers for their remasters. If you take a look at these screenshots right here, the official art for this remaster of SNK vs. Capcom was censored in the middle of its image translation. As you can see in the first image, Japan was not afraid of showing off their female characters with their specific assets, while on the American translated image, a bunch of things were changed. And for what? Just to make people upset and make the game look more unappealing? Probably, because according to the disclaimer on this game, that's all they care about, is making sure everybody knows that they do not agree with the direction that the game originally went in, and they are hell-bent on undermining the influence that this game has on its player base. So there you have it. There's proof right there. I can only assume now that they are dedicating themselves to an ESG agenda for the foreseeable future that we're going to see much more of this as time goes on. So again, be ready for this nonsense to go up a level, while DEI projects such as Concord go down many levels. As per Pirate Nation here, Concord fails to crack Steam's 750 most wish-listed games after disappointing beta. Currently at number 801 most wish-listed is Black Myth Wukong. So a game made in China is so much more popular than a DEI-fueled exclusive from Sony. That is bad news for the West right there. As you can see see on the page itself, Black Myth Wukong is #1. But if you type in Concord, you're going to get a very interesting result where it says it is 796. No one's playing the beta. I think it peaked out at about 2,000 players before it just started to dip and die out. And that was an open beta. Anybody could have played it, and only 4,000 people, as you can see on the right here, are following it, as opposed to Black Myth Wukong, which is sitting at about like 500,000 something. DEI is definitely not popular in the Steam market, although Sony and other companies like Capcom and Ubisoft would have you believe the opposite. That these games are succeeding, that there is a huge market for this type of video game, which is why we keep dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into these projects that just do not get the positive reception that we want. So we'll just lie in interviews and say that the sentimentality for these games are very positive, that the support they're getting for these ESG and DEI initiatives are reaching incalculable heights, and the critics who are roasting us for trying to do this sort of thing are the real racists and villains in this situation. Which is why we're going to attack the Japanese people for calling out our historical misrepresentation of their people, culture, and their history. It's also why we at Capcom are going to start hiring more non-Japanese directors, more diverse, equitous, and inclusive people who match the descriptions that we need. Not because of merit, but because of what they provide ideologically. All of these people want an ideologically driven future in video games. They want their politics to be front and center while putting gameplay, enjoyment, and fun on the back burner. And as gamers continue to feel more and more demoralized and untrusting towards these companies by the day, it's become very clear to me, and perhaps clearer to more people on the outside looking in, that we are certainly in an uphill battle. The good news is that games like Black Myth Wukong are getting most of the positive attention. Now, the media will never tell you that, and neither will these companies who are botching all of their new releases. They won't tell you these things, which is why I and other people with common sense are trying to do it for you. The best thing I can say about this is vote with your wallets. And I'm sure many of you are already, and I'm sure that many of you have been turned off to most of the things that these companies have been saying to their customer base. But as long as you vote with your wallet, you are speaking out against this nonsense. And if you're not into this stuff, if you're not into DEI, or you're not into ESG, or being preached at, called a racist, bigot, all these horrible names that they've been using against people who simply push back on these narratives for years and years, then you're probably not interested in Star Wars Outlaws or Assassin's Creed Shadows. But if you are, be aware. Ubisoft is showing that they do not care about you. And if you support them, just know that you're going to keep getting video games like this for years to come. As long as we keep purchasing their games, they will keep making them. Just goes to show with their pre-order claims that there are some out there who will buy these games no matter what, who will support Ubisoft no matter what happens, no matter what controversy surrounds them. Be vigilant, be aware, remain financially stable. And that's all I've got for you guys in this video today. I hope you all enjoyed it. If you haven't had the chance to like it and share it with your friends, that would be awesome. And hey, if you're feeling ultra spicy, consider subscribing to my channel so that you're always up to date on what kind of thing I've got going on. I look forward to seeing you all in the next one. Later. Meow meow.